I'm still looking for my $100 to come through. The person who lost me $100, who I bet $100 on Twitter, said they were paying it. Still waiting. So let's just get onto that now. See if it's paid before the end of the show. So this is the conversation from One News, this culture war bullshit. Remember, my premise is this. I don't even need to have a conversation with them about perhaps what they would deem the left narrative to be, because they disagree with their own right narrative. And I'll demonstrate that to you as we go through, and I'll show you how I won $100 off Twitter tonight. Saying to someone on the right, I bet you I can show you how it's not just women who have babies. Remember, again, don't get upset or offended with me if you don't like the kind of language I'm going to use, but I'm talking in their narrative and showing how they don't even believe their own narrative.
The Prime Minister is defending a directive to Health New Zealand to use the words pregnant women instead of pregnant people, a term used more recently to include transgender and non-binary parents. In a letter, Women's Health Minister Casey Costello said she wanted clear language that was sex-specific. But members of the rainbow community say it's just the latest example of a divisive government. Political editor Mikey Sherman reports.
Mikey!
When it comes to a pregnant belly, it's usually easy to tell who's expecting, but what their pronouns are may not always be as clear. So Health NZ adopted a gender-neutral term, pregnant people, a term now being shelved following a directive from the minister.
And I think this is the point that I wanted to make, right? The reason that this is a culture war bullshit conversation, like this is the most important thing to sort out in our health system at the minute. The reason it's a culture war bullshit conversation is when I show you how they don't even agree with their own position, then you go, well, that means you're doing it just for clicks. You're doing it just to give red meat to your base. You don't even believe what you're saying. Or if you don't realize what you're saying, then you haven't thought this through enough to make a statement at all.
Minister responsible for women's health, and therefore I think it's perfectly acceptable for me to be able to talk about women's health.
Last month, she sent a letter to Health NZ outlining the change.
This isn't about a exclusion.
Last month, conversation around Dunedin Hospital, thinking about where all the funding's coming from Nelson Hospital, all these big, massive issues going on. And this person's worried about the words pregnant people over pregnant women. That's how we know this is culture war bullshit. This is red meat to the base of transphobes that are voting for New Zealand First. I'm not saying everyone who votes for New Zealand First is transphobes, but the transphobes who are around, they certainly gravitate towards that group more so than any other, in my opinion.
Anyone. This is about being clear about our messaging, and I didn't, the letter is very clear.
I totally support that. What's been happening, and it's happening globally, is that they've been de-sexing the language in the name of inclusivity, but what they've done is excluded the vast majority of women who are affected by women's health issues.
Now that's the question, Chewie. I heard you say it. So how have women been excluded? Now, excluded would imply they are not getting the service that they should be getting. What woman has not had the service that is entitled to her? What woman has been excluded from the health system, especially if we're talking about having babies? Show me one woman that is, quote, been excluded, end quote, because this story is about pregnant people and pregnant women, from any kind of care to do with pregnant women. Again, this is how you know it is a culture war bullshit story, Chewie. Because there's not a single woman in New Zealand who has been excluded from pre or postnatal care around their pregnancy.
First time I heard this morning, just seeing the headline and that sort of thing, I was like, are they trying to say that pregnant people aren't people? Like, honestly, that was my first thought. Like, it's an exclusive term. Like, you literally catch everybody with that. And they've tried to bury it in the fact of like, oh, we're concerned if people don't English isn't their first language, they don't understand what's going on. What? What? Apparently, the saying people with a cervix was confusing, but that's not what this headline is.
No.
This headline is specifically talking about the term pregnant people. Now, if you were I hate this term, biological woman, and they say you're a pregnant woman, that's correct. If they say you're a pregnant person, also correct. And it's just when we get caught in this, it just becomes mean. Like you're just going, oh well, if it's gonna piss off or make a tiny minority of pregnant people, make them feel bad, we don't care. That's all that they're achieving here. It's not a win for anybody but a small group of people that want to punch down on someone who's different. And that can get fucked.
The conversation has moved so quickly in this area because, in the 60s, we talked about that was liberating to have gender being, societal, put on you by society. And we went through that, and it's, it's constructed for you. We went through it, and we came into the first part of this century talking about, your gender is self-identifiable, but we've all heard the conversations that gender is software, sex is hardware, in other words, female. And then that's flowed a bit more into, probably thanks to the last government, and I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, about self-identifying sex as well. There are some real, very genuine areas, and I can give you an example. I had a conversation with a chemist the other day. The male and female urethra, the anatomy, if it has an infection, they get given a different drug. And I had a conversation with someone who said that they offended someone by asking what they were born as, but the reason they asked it was they had to actually provide for them the correct medicine for their biology. And that's with me when I kind of go, wouldn't this all just be solved with male, female? Like, gender is not the same as sex. It can be completely separate to it. It can be whatever you want, male and female. It's all solvable. Like, just in that way. But then again, I'm not part of the community. Some people in the community are happy with male, female. Some people want to self-identify as male, female. And that's the ongoing conversation. So someone's pointed out about the protest that we're going right now. Look at all the grey hair. It's true. Let's get to the end of this, because we also remember this bit's mostly going to be about how the people who say there are only two genders are wrong, even using their own narrative. We don't have to argue against them saying this is our narrative. Using their narrative, they're still wrong, and they admit that they're wrong when it gets explained to them.
Gender issues has seen plenty of protest in recent years. But members of the rainbow community say the latest directive is an attack.
Certain politicians have a history of bad behaviour towards people of the transgender community, non-binary people.
I think it just speaks to the division that this government is just continuing to roll out.
Most New Zealanders would actually say pregnant people are women, and that's quite acceptable to say so.
Until I explain how you're wrong, Mr. Prime Minister, very shortly.
Health NZ in 2023 released a report on maternity care standards, referring to pregnant people throughout, acknowledging not all people who become pregnant identify as women or female, adding health professionals involved in the care of pregnant people should ensure they know the pronouns.
It actually angers the majority of women to be referred to as pregnant people.
Research.
That's
please.
it.
Yeah,
Proof.
research, please.
Citation needed.
Yeah, citation
what
needed.
The fuck?
Research,
who is this
please.
person speaking for all women?
Yeah. And look, that statement may be correct, but it's also measurable, and you need to provide the data to back up your extremely large quote you've just given there, that the majority of women are upset by this.
The majority of women I have spoke to are angered by this. Fine. Couldn't debate that statement.
Yeah.
All women everywhere.
Yeah.
You can't prove. It's a stupid thing to say.
Yep, indeed.
As pregnant people.
The minister says she's received documents with similar wording.
What's confusing about the term pregnant people?
Good question. What is confusing it?
Excellent.
Are you a person? Are you a people? And are you pregnant? Okay.
Well, the fact is it's women. It's women that get pregnant.
I think that she's ignorant because not only women can get pregnant, people who identify as being men can also be pregnant.
They say it's less about policy than it is politics.
It just shows that she isn't with the times.
My view is that there is room for all of us in this diverse community to which we all belong.
What's important is just to have clear language, and I think common sense language.
Language causing continued debate, creating plenty of Labour pains in the process. Mikey Sherman, One News.
Mikey got a pun in there. Plenty of Labour pains. Good on you, Mikey. I like that one.
Can we?
I've actually got that
focus
stand
on
up.
the important bit there? That Luxon, the king of clear language, that's what he's sticking his flag in there.
I've got Luxon at the stand up. We are going to watch some of that. But here, let me just do this. Now, remember, I am swimming in the pool that is the people who say there are only two genders, right? And I'm going to talk to those people in their own language. I made a bet on Twitter tonight, and my bet was, anyone take a bet? $100. I bet you that I can show you that it's not only women who can get pregnant. Any takers? And Chewie, there was a surprisingly small response. It's funny that when you put up a clip about this or a clip about Benjamin Doyle or whatever, you get thousands of responses, but you put a direct challenge out there and the responses aren't quite as forthcoming. Anyway, we had a certain individual that some people may know and remember. I don't know who this person is, but they've got a profile online called Captain Jack Harris is his name. He's one of the chiefs, one of the priests of the alt-right. And of course, he went through a bunch of things to make sure I wasn't trying to play some trick. You can show us pregnant women hyped up on man juice injections, but she's still a woman. So I asked, are you taking the wager? Sure, fire away. Here are the rules. Can't be a hormone-juiced woman. Has to be a human. The baby has to be born of the mother. And I'm like, yep, I agree to all of that. So there's the wager. I can prove to you that one doesn't have to be a woman to have a baby. You're taking the bet. Then wanted more caveats. To birth a baby, not to have. Let's go with that. Sure. Okay. Now remember, I'm playing in their pool, right? Man, woman, two genders. Only women can have babies. The question is, what do you call a 15-year-old female? The answer came back, an adolescent female. Sure. So not a woman then. Can that 15-year-old have a baby? You can pay the $100 to the Super Chat tonight after 9 p.m. I'm assuming that you're a man of your word. Thanks for playing. Now, I don't need to get into a conversation or a debate over what is a woman or only two genders or whatever. These are your rules. You say there's only two genders. But in your world, there's boys and girls as well. So there's not only two genders. In your world, there's at least four. And then there's intersex as well, which you all acknowledge is a small percentage. So that's got us to 5. So I just think that people who spout out these things, there are only two genders, are either dishonest actors or they haven't spent 5 minutes to actually get their own argument together. Because as I've just shown you, Chewie, even in that world, there are more than two genders. So Captain, whatever his name was, said he was going to pay the $100. Said he was going to pay it as the show started. So I don't know if he's watching or not, but we all look forward to that $100 coming through on a super chat, because as I said, as the challenge, I will prove to you, and I used their words, that you don't just have to be a woman to have a baby. Now, another whole conversation about what we think necessarily and what the community watching here might say who can have a baby. But in their world, there's at least 5 genders, and in their world, there's at least 2 of those genders that can have a baby, Chewie. I was being pedantic, Pat, but I wanted to make a point to show them you haven't even thought about this from your own perspective. Sir.
Here's the point that I want to make. Yes, we can go down the path of, what is it? What is a chair? You can get caught up in the semantics of dissecting a person down to what reproductive parts they have, which is offensive in itself. I want to focus on the fact that this is the women's health minister instructing the health department to just basically ignore a segment of people looking for healthcare.
Yeah. Stop
Like
communicating with them.
just from a human respect point of view. Can you imagine that? Like going through as something as potentially traumatic as giving birth to a child, and you have to deal with the entire machinery of our health department potentially saying, fuck your feelings. We're going to tell you what you are.
I mean, would anyone have a problem if it said women and pregnant people? Like, there are some women who don't want to see that term. Okay. Whether I agree with you or not, okay. And there are some people in the trans non-binary community who also don't want to see the term woman. Is it such a bad thing to go women and pregnant people? I mean, I think pregnant people can cover everybody because, like we said, if you're a woman and you're pregnant, you are a person who is pregnant. But I mean, like, I guess what I'm trying to do, Chewie, is just find a solution here that doesn't shit on a vulnerable community and doesn't let a bunch of bigots set the tone for how that community is going to be spoken to. Would we be happy with that? Women and pregnant people, or is that going too far into placating those people who want to shit on a vulnerable community?
Yeah, it's like we said at the top of the show. It's a bullshit culture wars beneath us discussion, and the fact that it's come out now, the week after the same party, went after a non-binary person and basically accused them with no evidence of being a pedophile. The trend is worrying, and now New Zealand First, I mean, they have been the entire time, but they are the party of the conspiracy, the cooker, the fringe nutters on our society. And because of what Christopher Luxon, I don't see a problem with this, should be his fucking title, is we have to deal with this on the national stage. Like, and it's
you might say on the national front. You could say that on the national front. You could.
And it's another example of a minority party being the associate minister for something. The tiny amount of people that voted for them to put into that position doing just this culture war shit and just shit stirring, making changes that don't need to be made because they want to score ideological points at the expense of someone's humanity. It's fucking stupid.
Let's go to the stand-up. If you were frustrated with Luxon now, you wait till you hear this piece of brilliant CEO talk that comes out. He says something like, I hire big people, or something like that. It's very bizarre. Now, the other thing is we are going to move slightly into this conversation because in the middle of this stand-up, and this, we've got about 3.5 minutes to play. All of a sudden, Luxon gets asked about gang numbers going up. And guess what he does? You remember that Monty Python? He bravely ran away. Da, 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 da. So you watch when the gang numbers going up question comes out, how bravely he runs away and gives it to Mark Mitchell. So this is talking about the pregnant people question to start off with, and talking about Costello. And I think it's an interesting question. Did Costello actually bounce us around the cabinet table before she made the declaration? Which I actually kind of think would be the norm. But yeah, no, because I hire the best people with the best brains.
Just on your relationship with New Zealand First, just going back to the director from Minister Costello, did she or anyone from New Zealand First run that past your cabinet first?
No, but we're all very aligned on that position. And the way that we work as a former CEO is you have big people doing big jobs and big portfolios. And
big jobs! Big business jobs!
Jumbo jobbies. Big people. Big jobbies. doing big
fuck's
jobs
sake.
out of their big pants.
And you entrust them and you empower them. You're very clear about what you expect them to deliver, but you let them get on with the job. And we don't want to do endless meeting culture. We want our ministers out and about doing things and getting things done. These two gentlemen, frankly, are good exampment of what they're doing to restore law and order. When you see gang legislation in place, when you see serious consequences for serious young criminals, and when you see the removal of sentencing discounts and the results in feeling that New Zealanders
Wait for the runaway. It's hilarious.
in their streets, in their communities, in their homes, that's a good thing.
On that, aren't gang numbers going up and police
Gang numbers going up.
slowly going up? You're not going to be
Watch it. Watch it.
I'll let Mark talk to that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fuck it, I'm out.
Oh my gosh. Isn't that the best runaway ever? Speaking to that, seeing you've just kind of put out there all this information that you think is Labour bad. What about the gang numbers? Though? That doesn't look too shit hot at the moment. Can you speak to that, Mr. Prime Minister? He bravely ran away.